Before diving into this incredible story, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell. Every story here has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Ethan Caldwell was a man who had it all: billions in the bank, lavish estates around the world, and a reputation as a dapper, ruthless man. But behind his tailored suits and charming smile lay a wound no one could see. Anna Mitchell, the woman he had loved more than anything, had left him to follow her own dreams. A betrayal Ethan had never been able to come to terms with. Today, just days before his wedding to an influential and sophisticated heiress, he made what he thought was a perfect decision: to send Anna an invitation. Not to reconnect, not to forgive, but to see her suffer. "Come to my wedding. Just to see what you've been missing," he wrote, the cruel pleasure almost evident in his pen. What Ethan didn't know was that life had its own plans for Anna. In the meantime, she'd built a life full of love, joy, and 3 little miracles. Her triplets. 3 children whose laughter could light up any room and make any anger or resentment unnecessary. When Anna received the invitation, she smiled. Not out of revenge, nor out of bitterness, but because she knew that on that day she would arrive not to suffer, but to show that her life, from now on, belonged to no one but her and her children. And this wedding would become the setting for a lesson Ethan would never forget. Anna Mitchell was sitting at her kitchen table, a steaming cup of coffee in her hands, when the mailman placed an elegant envelope on the counter. She looked up and immediately recognized the refined, carefully handwritten script. Her heart didn't beat faster. Instead, an amused smile tugged at her lips. She opened the envelope and read the note in a low voice. "Anna, your absence has left a void I will never forget. Come to my wedding. Ethan." She burst out laughing, almost softly, as if the whole world could hear her quiet satisfaction. Ethan Caldwell. The man who had believed he could break her by losing her. The man who still thought he could control his emotions. But Anna was no longer the vulnerable young woman he'd known. Her life had changed since she'd left him. She wasn't just independent, she was fulfilled, happy, and the mother of triplets. Ava, Liam, and Noah, 3 children full of life and energy, who ran around the house laughing and playing. She put the note on the table and called the children over. "Boys and girl, Mommy has to go to a little party. You'll be good, okay?" "Yes, Mom," they shouted in chorus, before running off to play in the garden. Anna took a deep breath. She knew her presence would surprise Ethan. But she wasn't coming for revenge. She was coming to show that her life was complete, full of happiness and pride. A few days later, dressed in an elegant but simple dress, she loaded the triplets into the car. The excited children chattered non-stop, asking questions about the party, the lights, the cake. Anna smiled at their questions, each word strengthening her confidence and determination. Arriving at the Caldwell mansion, she felt a rush of adrenaline. Guests milled around the courtyard, admiring the lavish decorations, the luxurious cars, and the impeccably dressed waiters. But none of it impressed Anna. Her life didn't depend on pomp. Her life was here, with her children, radiant and full of joy. She pushed open the door to the mansion, and the moment Ethan laid eyes on her, his plan for revenge crumbled to dust. Anna, smiling and confident, entered with her triplets, and for the first time in a long time, Ethan Caldwell felt completely helpless. The Caldwell mansion was a blaze of luxury all its own: white marble columns, illuminated fountains, and gilded tapestries that told stories of wealth and power. Guests, dressed in their finest attire, whispered among themselves, admiring the opulence. But amidst the splendor, one figure caught everyone's attention. Anna Mitchell appeared in the doorway, her triplets at her side, in matching, perfectly arranged strollers. Ava, Liam, and Noah laughed and pointed at the flowers, fountains, and elegant guests, their innocence and energy a stark contrast to the rigidity of the setting. Ethan Caldwell, who was chatting with a few influential guests, froze when he saw her. His prepared smile, meant to impress, transformed into a mixture of surprise and confusion. Anna was no longer the fragile young woman he had known. She radiated confidence and happiness. And these children, these triplets were a living reminder that she had built a life that he, for all his wealth, could never have provided. Whispers quickly spread among the guests. Is this her? And these children, are they hers? Some guests moved closer to watch discreetly, fascinated by the scene. Anna led her children through the hall, politely greeting familiar and unfamiliar faces. The curious triplets pointed at the decorations and asked questions incessantly. Anna answered with patience and a warm smile, showing that she was comfortable in an environment that could have intimidated anyone. Ethan, unable to look away, felt a pang of bitterness. He had imagined she would come, ashamed or hesitant, but she advanced confidently, each step amplifying her personal failure. He suddenly realized that his plan for revenge was pointless. Anna hadn't come to suffer, she had come to live life to the fullest and to show, without a word, that she had won the greatest victory of all, her own life. As the MC announced her and all eyes turned toward her, Anna paused for a moment to observe Ethan. A calm, confident smile crossed his face. No hatred, no reproach. Just the quiet satisfaction of a life well lived. And in that suspended moment, Ethan Caldwell realized that everything he'd planned had failed. His pride, his control, his desire to hurt, all of it had collapsed before the simplest, most powerful truth: Anna was happy. The murmur in the hall of the manor grew louder as Anna advanced, triplets at her side. The guests, initially intrigued, could not help but stare at this unusual scene. An elegant, radiant young woman, accompanied by 3 children with crystal-clear laughter, who lit up the room with irresistible joy. Ethan Caldwell stood frozen, unable to smile or hide his discomfort. He had imagined every detail of his revenge, seeing her blush, looking away, feeling the weight of her loneliness and failures. But instead, Anna walked confidently, her eyes shining with quiet pride, and her children seemed to absorb all the guests' attention. Who would have thought she'd have triplets, whispered an influential guest. And she looks so happy. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. Every smile from Anna, every burst of laughter from his children, seemed to remind him of everything he'd lost. He'd wanted to see her suffer, but what he saw was far crueler, the pure, authentic happiness he could never recreate. Anna, aware of the stares and the effect she was making, guided her children to a quiet corner so they could explore the mansion without disturbing anyone. She politely greeted the guests she knew, exchanging a few words with grace and lightness. The curious triplets asked questions and pointed out every shiny detail, captivating everyone's attention. Ethan finally approached, thinking to start a conversation. But before he could open his mouth, Anna looked at him and gave him a simple smile. "Ethan, look," she said softly, as Ava reached out to touch a fountain. Liam laughed as he ran around the room, and Noah pointed at the glittering chandeliers. "This is my life." Those words, simple yet powerful, hit Ethan harder than any insult or humiliation. His resentment and his plan for revenge collapsed in an instant. He understood that he could not compete with this happiness, with this family he had ignored and could never achieve. That night, in the great hall of the Caldwell mansion, the only humiliation came from the truth: Anna Mitchell was not the broken woman he had hoped to see. She was stronger, happier, and utterly untouchable. As the reception got into full swing, Anna's triplets quickly became the center of attention. Ava, Liam, and Noah explored the grand lobby with insatiable curiosity, their peals of laughter filling the space and bringing a smile to even the most uptight guests. Ava stopped in front of the marble fountain and gently patted the water, marveling at the shimmering reflections. Liam ran around the columns, mimicking the dancers' movements, while Noah tried to attract the waiters' attention by playing with their decorated trays. Every move the children made seemed to amplify the brightness of the evening and highlight the contrast between real life and the superficial opulence that surrounded them. Ethan, watching from a corner, felt a pang of dismay. He had believed that marriage and wealth could control everything, that a simple look of contempt or a cruel smile would be enough to hurt Anna. But seeing his children so alive, so free, and their mother radiant, struck him like a painful revelation. His plan for revenge no longer had any value. The guests, charmed by the children's energy, crowded around to admire them, hold their hands, or simply watch them play. Some whispered to each other, "Look how adorable they are," and she looks so happy. Anna, aware of the impact her children had on the room, remained calm and smiling. She gently guided Ava, Liam, and Noah, teaching them proper manners without ever stifling their spontaneity. Every laugh, every word exchanged with the guests reinforced the impression that her life was complete, fulfilled, and unattainably happy. Ethan, for his part, felt a surge of conflicting emotions, admiration, regret, and a slight sense of humiliation. He had wanted to hurt her, but now he was the one confronted with his own helplessness. It was then that one of the guests, unable to contain his curiosity, approached and asked, "Anna, these children, are they really yours?" She smiled, placing a protective hand on Ava's shoulder. "Yes. 3 miracles that make my life whole and perfect." Ethan felt a shiver run through him. Those simple words, accompanied by that serene smile, echoed throughout the room. For the first time, he understood that Anna's true power lay not in beauty or the regrets he might have inflicted on her, but in her ability to create a life filled with love and happiness. And as the music resumed and the guests continued to dance, Ethan Caldwell realized he had just witnessed something he could never buy or control, the purity of the life Anna had built away from him. The evening was in full swing when whispers began to spread among the guests. Eyes constantly turned towards Anna and her triplets. Some whispered with curiosity, others with admiration. "She's beautiful," murmured a guest, holding her glass of champagne. "And those kids, how can anyone be so fulfilled after everything she's been through?" another replied, her eyes fixed on Ava, who was laughing out loud. Anna, aware of all the stares, showed no sign of embarrassment. She calmly guided her children, letting them explore the mansion under her watchful eye. Every move her triplets made seemed to light up the room, and the guests couldn't help but smile at their spontaneity. Ethan Caldwell, however, felt his revenge plan crumbling. He had imagined Anna blushing, looking away, suffering in silence over her success and her marriage. But she walked confidently, a quiet smile on her lips, and her children captivated everyone's attention. He watched for a moment as Anna spoke with a group of acquaintances, her triplets playing nearby. The children were laughing, enjoying themselves with the guests, and seemed perfectly happy. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. His resentment, his wounded pride, all of it seemed paltry in comparison to this scene. A guest approached him and whispered, "You knew her once, didn't you? Look at her, she has everything you would have wanted for her." Ethan nodded, unable to answer. Every smile from Anna, every burst of laughter from the children, hit him harder than any insult or humiliation he could have imagined inflicting. Anna, noticing Ethan's troubled gaze, gave him a small smile. It contained neither hatred nor defiance, only the tranquility of a woman who had overcome everything. She hadn't come for revenge, nor to provoke, but to silently show that her life was no longer within her reach. At that precise moment, Ethan learned the most painful lesson of his life: you can't hurt someone who has found their true strength and happiness. And tonight, surrounded by her children and friends, Anna Mitchell was invincible. As the evening wore on, Ethan Caldwell could no longer contain himself. He crossed the sumptuous lobby, politely pushing aside the guests who wanted to greet him, and walked over to Anna. His intention was clear: to start a conversation, to try to bring her back into his world, or at least understand how she had become the strong, fulfilled woman she was. Anna, surrounded by her triplets, calmly watched the fascinated guests. She didn't seem to have noticed Ethan's approach, absorbed by the laughter of her children and the smiles they provoked around them. When he finally stood in front of her, his heart was beating faster than he thought possible. He tried to smile, but he knew he had lost all control. "Anna," he began, hesitantly. She looked up at him, her calm, confident smile betraying no fear or resentment. "Ethan," she answered softly, as if simply saying his name carried no weight of pain. He took a deep breath and continued. I just wanted." Anna interrupted, placing a light hand on Ava's shoulder as she laughed, imitating the dancers around them. "Ethan, look," she said, her voice soft but firm. "This is my life." He followed her gaze and saw the triplets having fun with the guests, captivating everyone with their innocence and joy. Ava was laughing out loud, Liam was imitating the waiters with comical gestures, and Noah was pointing at the glittering decorations in wonder. Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. Everything he'd planned to see her suffer was pointless. Every gesture Anna made, every burst of laughter from her children, was living proof of his happiness and success. "You've changed," he whispered, his voice betraying both surprise and regret. Anna looked at him calmly, without reproach, and replied, "No, Ethan. It's not me who's changed, it's just my life that's mine now. And I don't need validation or revenge anymore." In that moment, Ethan understood that true power didn't lie in money, manipulation, or elaborate planning. It lay in the ability to create a life filled with happiness, love, and resilience. And Anna, surrounded by her triplets, had just shown him exactly what he'd lost. As music echoed through the great hall of the Caldwell mansion, Anna knelt beside her triplets, their eyes sparkling with mischief and excitement. "Would you like to show everyone your talents?" she asked softly. Ava nodded eagerly, Liam clapped his hands, and Noah pointed toward the orchestra as if inviting the musicians to follow them. Anna smiled and led the children to the center of the room. The guests, intrigued, immediately turned to observe the unusual scene. The triplets began a short impromptu performance. Ava danced gracefully, Liam mimicked the orchestra's movements with exaggerated gestures, and Noah mimicked the guests' dance steps. Laughter and applause quickly erupted, captivating everyone's attention and bringing an unexpected freshness to the reception's subdued and sophisticated atmosphere. Ethan, sitting in a corner of the hall, felt an intense emotion wash over him. Every gesture the children made, every burst of laughter, further underscored what he had lost. He had imagined seeing her suffer, but instead he found himself faced with pure, undeniable happiness. His plans for revenge had crumbled before the reality of this life he could neither control nor reach. A guest approached, impressed. "They're amazing," and she raised them alone. Anna nodded, placing a protective hand on Ava's shoulder. "Yes. And every day with them reminds me that happiness is priceless and cannot be achieved with resentment." The triplets laughed and danced carefreely as guests clapped and took pictures. Ethan remained silent, a mixture of respect, admiration, and regret crossing his face. He had wanted to see Anna fall, but this sight only confirmed her strength, her independence, and her ability to create a life full of joy. In that moment, Ethan understood that the real humiliation wasn't for Anna. She wasn't suffering. The real humiliation was for him. In the face of this woman and her children, he had lost all illusion of control. And he knew, with painful certainty, that no wealth, no scheme, no manipulation could ever rival the authentic happiness Anna now embodied. The ceremony continued in a blaze of pomp and music, but for Ethan Caldwell, the world seemed to have shrunk to a single truth: Anna and her triplets occupied his entire mind. He had hoped that seeing her at his wedding would be able to control his emotions, make her blush or feel diminished. But what he saw now unsettled him deeply. A beaming Anna led her children through the guests, their laughter illuminating every corner of the mansion. The triplets interacted with the waiters and musicians, their bursts of joy contrasting with the rigidity and solemnity of the event. Every gesture seemed to underscore how complete her life was, rich in love and happiness. Ethan watched Anna speak with influential guests, responding with grace and warmth. She held no grudges, no bitterness. She had transformed the pain of their separation into strength, and every smile she offered her children was a reminder of what he had lost. At one point, one of the guests approached Ethan and whispered, "You thought she would come here to suffer, didn't you?" Ethan nodded, unable to answer. His meticulously planned revenge plan had failed in the face of the stark truth: Anna was living life to the fullest, and nothing could touch her. As the wedding cake was presented and the guests prepared to celebrate, the triplets once again commanded everyone's attention by dancing around the table, laughing and playing without inhibition. The guests were amazed, and Ethan felt a pang of intense regret. He had believed that wealth and social status could hurt someone, but in the face of this genuine joy, all his power seemed insignificant. Anna, noticing Ethan's troubled gaze, gave him a simple but powerful smile. There was no defiance or arrogance, only the serenity of a woman who had built her life on her own terms. That silent smile said it all: I won. You have no control here. For the first time in a long time, Ethan Caldwell realized the hardest truth of all: true happiness and power aren't measured by money or revenge. They're found in the ability to create a life filled with joy, love, and resilience. And tonight, Anna Mitchell, surrounded by her children, embodied that truth in irrefutable ways. The evening was drawing to a close, but for Ethan Caldwell, the inner turmoil was only just beginning. He had watched Anna and her triplets for hours, and every moment reinforced the same reality: he had lost, and in the most undeniable way. The guests continued to laugh and chat, but Ethan stood frozen in a corner, unable to look away. Ava, Liam, and Noah had moved closer to their mother, surrounding Anna like a halo of happiness and light. Every laugh, every gesture from the children reminded Ethan of what he had once wanted to destroy: a fulfilling, loving life. He had hoped that his marriage, his wealth, and his prestige might provoke a feeling of envy or pain in Anna. But tonight, he understood that true power didn't lie in money or revenge. It lay in the ability to build, protect, and cherish what truly mattered: family, love, and happiness. Anna, noticing Ethan's thoughtful, troubled gaze, approached calmly. She placed a hand on Noah's shoulder and said softly, "Ethan, you wanted to hurt me, didn't you?" Ethan nodded, unable to utter a word. "Look around you," Anna continued, smiling. "I don't need revenge or validation. My life is full, and no one will ever be able to touch it." Ethan felt a mixture of shame and admiration. For the first time, he saw clearly what he had lost by trying to control someone else: he had sacrificed his ability to understand the true strength and joy of life. The triplets, carefree and radiant, danced around them, laughing and playing with an energy that nothing could curb. Anna watched them with pride, then turned her gaze to Ethan one last time. Her smile was not a challenge, but a silent affirmation: she had won the greatest victory of all, that of life itself. Ethan realized then that his attempt at revenge had become futile. The real lesson wasn't in humiliation or resentment, but in admiration for what Anna had built. And tonight, surrounded by her children and her pure joy, she showed him wordlessly that life could be beautiful and invincible when you chose happiness over resentment. A few weeks later, Ethan Caldwell found himself in a quiet cafe in the city, lost in thought. The wedding, the reception, the laughter, the triplets, all of it revolving around in his mind. He tried to understand, to rationalize his defeat, but he knew now that some lessons could only be learned through direct experience. At that moment, Anna walked in with her children. Ava, Liam, and Noah ran ahead of her, laughing and chatting happily with other children in the cafe. Anna, beaming as ever, greeted Ethan with a simple smile. There was no blame or resentment, just the serenity and confidence of a woman who had found her balance. Ethan stood up slowly. "Anna." She looked at him calmly and interrupted. "Ethan, I'm living my life now. A life filled with happiness and love. What you thought you could control was never yours." The triplets rushed toward Ethan, curious and carefree, and Anna watched them with pride. They were living proof that happiness cannot be ordered, that it is created with patience and dedication. Ethan felt a deep emotion pass through him, a mixture of respect, admiration, and acceptance. "You're right," he finally whispered. "I lost, and now I understand why." Anna smiled, a small but powerful smile. "Life is too precious to spend it trying to hurt someone. Find your happiness, Ethan. And know that true power isn't measured by wealth or revenge." Then she led Ava, Liam, and Noah out, their laughter filling the cafe with a luminous energy. Ethan stood there, motionless, watching these three little lives he could only admire. And for the first time in a long time, he felt a kind of peace. Anna and her children disappeared into the afternoon light, leaving behind a simple but powerful lesson: true triumph lies not in hurting someone who has hurt you, but in living fully, with courage and love. And in a world filled with vanity and resentment, Anna Mitchell had proven that no amount of wealth or revenge could rival the genuine joy and strength of a life well lived. Ethan stood alone for a moment, then smiled humbly, finally able to let go of the past and begin to understand what happiness really was.